I'm a Tar Heel born, I'm a Tar Heel bred, and when I die, I'm a Tar Heel bred. So Rock Carolina.
Thanks for coming back. If this is your first time, welcome. We are the WOW Board, and this is Common Product Launch with Academic Thriving. Next, we'll be talking about resource centers and where you can get help. Last episode, we talked about student life and studying, specifically big study locations like libraries and, certain studying tips that we had. And just to reintroduce ourselves, and hopefully we're getting familiar, I'm Ashini.
I'm Claire.
I'm Bella.
And I'm Molly.
And in this episode, our second episode, we're going to be talking about more resource centers other than just the libraries and where you can go to get academic help.
And on that note, I'm really curious, what has been one of the most impactful resource centers or experiences or groups, shall we say, that has made your time at Carolina and specifically your academic journey a little bit easier?
I haven't personally, since we're both freshmen, so you could probably relate to this, I haven't personally gone to any of the academic centers quite yet. I do have one of my really close friends. She has taken up the opportunity to do peer tutoring, and that has really been extremely impactful for her. Her grades have gone up tremendously, and she just felt like it was a really big help for her just homework-wise and test-wise studying. And also I would think I have used more on a personal level, like office hours, just from individual professors. I think that's also really helpful because at the end of the day, they really are here to help you one-on-one, and it's great to just go talk to your TAs and get to know them too.
I've also been to peer tutoring before, mainly for chemistry, and I will say you don't have to go in prepared or anything because the whole point is for them to help you either get started or go over problems you don't know or think about how you can study for a test. So it's pretty flexible and you mainly get to decide what you want to do with your session.
Yeah, I think it's housed under the Learning Center, the peer tutoring program. I went for Spanish, I think, my first semester last year, so when I was a freshman, and I was kind of struggling. I was like, wow, this class is a lot harder than when it was in high school. This is something I want to major in potentially, so I was a little bit, what am I going to do? But I went in, and it was really nice to know that one of these other students had actually taken the class. They knew what the course was, what load was like, and they kind of knew what the next steps were to succeed. They're really going to help you along that journey, and they're not just giving you the answers to homework. Obviously, that's the easy right way out, but, they were really teaching me the material and saying, okay, here's what you can do in class, here's what you can do to prepare, and I definitely did a lot better on my exams as well. So that's been one of my favorite programs, but honestly, the Econ Aid Center was also super beneficial. That's something housed kind of through the Econ department. Econ 101 was pretty rough for me, I have to say, but the people in there, the TAs and the ULAs, so the teaching assistants and the undergraduate learning assistants, they were so beneficial, and I would not have gone through the class without them. But I'm sure there's also been, some science tutors like that and different science programs that they have. I can't really speak to that, though, because I'm a business student.
For chemistry, for the large chemistry and biology courses, usually we also have learning assistants and peer mentors. So learning assistants will be with us in class, and we can ask them questions since in large lectures it's hard to get the professor everywhere. And then peer mentors, they usually just host Q&A sessions, usually on Zoom or in person. And I know learning assistants will also usually hold review sessions before exams to go over materials. And they make the questions themselves, and they're usually students, or they're always students who have taken the course before, and then this semester they're returning to help other students take the course.
Awesome.
Yeah, in actually Poly 281, one of my ULAs is really, really sweet, and I find that these people can sometimes be really helpful, even if you're not asking about class. I did ask her originally for help on an assignment, but then, she's also interested in going to law school like I am, so we started talking about that a little bit. So I found that either way, you can get a lot out of just even seeking out help.
Absolutely. I mean, these people, they want to be your friends. They're either a year older than you, sometimes they're the same year. I took Busy 100 last year, and there was just other freshmen from the semester before that were basically helping to teach the class. I mean, it's kind of cool because that's how you know it's legit. You know that those are people that really know the information and they know exactly what you're going through again. So I think it's great that we're able to immerse our students kind of in that teaching process as well, if that's something they're interested in. But I bet you guys are going to have them at some point if you haven't already, right?
Yeah, going back on your point of Busy 100, I took that last semester, and going to the office hours really helped me because while it was relatively an okay introductory class, coursework-wise, there were some moments where it was a bit of a struggle working with groups and things like that, so that was a really good way. My TAs were amazing, I loved them, and they were super helpful. So at the end of the day, I think everybody's really just here to help.
I think that's kind of the same with the Writing Center on campus too, because they're a space where you can really go in and get any type of help that you need. So you can come in with an idea, or you can go with a full paper written and they can give you edits on grammar and vocab choice and et cetera, et cetera. That's not one of my strong suits, but they're really helping to want you to improve in that writing and not only in that one assignment, which I think is a great resource to have. So have you guys used that yet?
I haven't. Actually, funny story. I got very close to using like that, but then I was trying to make an appointment, or maybe this was with the peer tutoring. But I was trying to make, actually, I don't remember. But I was trying to make an appointment actually. So I went online and I explored the website. So that's something I was able to get a little bit familiar with. But then nothing was really available at a time that I was available that week. So I was like, okay, next time. But that is something that's kind of convenient, being able to go online and check out a specific time, and it's something that seems very accessible to you. And those centers, the Writing and the Learning Center, are actually located on South Campus, so near most of the first year dorms, which I think is convenient.
Totally. And you know what? One of the great parts about the Writing Center too is after you've kind of finished your session, either one or two, they will let you have the choice if you want your teacher for the class, if you're writing it specifically for that, know that you've been at the center. So they kind of get a little email saying, hey, this student was working on this paper for your class. And it's kind of nice that your teacher might be able to know you're putting in that effort, extra effort, and it's maybe a leg up sometimes. I don't know if it actually does much, but nonetheless, it's cool that they're able to connect that out into our professor community to make sure that that's known. So I definitely recommend.
Before we move on to the next thing, I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't been to the Learning Center yet. If you live in Granville as a freshman, I would say definitely learn the bus schedule and the bus routes. That's really helpful. Everybody's scared of the buses. When you first go and try it, I know all of my friends were super scared, and I mean I was nervous because I had never been on a bus other than a school bus. So, but once you get it down pat, it's really easy, and it saves you a 25-30 minute walk all the way to the other side of campus. So I'd say don't let the travel time influence you going to the Learning and Writing Center. I think that you should just still figure out transportation and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I mean, even I'm off campus this year, so I'm a little bit of a further walk, especially from South Campus where they have both of those centers. But what I have learned recently is that they sometimes will have different sessions in buildings on the main campus, which I think is pretty accommodating for those students. But nonetheless, something to think about is definitely the bus system. No matter what, that's going to be beneficial to your time at Carolina. So that's something I think we can all work on. But at the same time, I think it's really cool. There's other accommodations outside of just our learning centers. They have the ARS program, which is really beneficial to those students who are looking to make sure that their accommodations are met. So I don't know if anyone can speak to that a little bit more, but what you've heard about it so far, or anything like that.
Yeah, not personally, but I definitely have a few friends who have kind of had to deal with scheduling their exams differently, and just so that, and having to do it way in advance so that the professor knows. But I've also found that the professor have been really understanding and made sure that their students knew about these, because there could be students that need accommodations, but maybe they're not sure exactly how to go and sign up to take their exam there or something like that. But the professors I've found in most of my classes have been good with reminders and things like that, so I think that probably seems really helpful to those students.
Right, and going to that point, I would say typically, I'd say in most, if not all courses, you'll pretty much know your exam schedule, whether it's a midterm, final, whatever. I would say definitely go ahead and look at that, like right towards the beginning of the semester, and then go ahead and maybe get those accommodations approved early, just so you don't have any extra stress, because midterms and finals are already stressful enough, and being able to have your accommodations is not one other stress. So I would just say go ahead and get that in early, that way people and your professor know where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely. I think, as far as testing, like individual midterm exams or maybe smaller quizzes if you need extra time, I know that a lot of my friends have been able to get that met. My friend was able to stay after class. She got, I think, maybe like half-time extra, and that, could tip the scale sometimes for your grade. So it's something that's definitely accessible in the college setting as well. I think, a lot of people are afraid to be able to ask for those accommodations if that's something that they had in high school, but there's definitely people and resources that are able to make that happen. So I think that's a great resource, but one of my favorite resources is actually housed in Haynes Hall, and that is going to be the career center that we have here. So, after you've done all these things to make sure your grades are good and you have a nice GPA that you want to put on your resume, you can go there and they can help you get that resume checked out. And I think that's a really beneficial service to have for kind of those post-grad plans.
Right.
UNC is known for the fact that 95% of its graduates after the 4 years of school are going to have a job within 6 months after. And I think the Haynes Center for, all of these professional skills is really beneficial to this as well. So they'll do resumes, they'll also help with interview prep, which I think is, that's something everybody needs. You can never practice too many interviews. So yeah, definitely something to think about at some point. I don't know, how are your guys' natural interview skills?
I've done a few. It's okay. I've been to one resume kind of workshop there, and I'd say it was really helpful because, in high school they might have you create a mock resume or, just like to try to prepare you, but it's a lot different when you get here, and I think that oftentimes, at least in my experience, kind of opportunities will just be like presented upon you very quickly, and so you don't really have like a whole lot of time to throw a resume together if you didn't already have one. So I think it's good to already have on hand, and also practice your interview skills. I mean, even like with your friends, or like if you, I know one of my close friends just had an interview and it went great because she sat there and she practiced with us and we like read out some questions to her. And so I think that definitely just utilizing these resources too for that is really a helpful thing for your future.
I think for me personally, when it comes to interviews like you asked about, I've never been particularly nervous about speaking or anything, so for me like that wasn't a hurdle. But I think one thing I really tried to learn and hone in on, especially like as a business major, is knowing how to be concise when you're speaking and speak to the like right things, and make sure that your process, like if you're talking about a past experience of yours and a behavioral question, these resources will really tell you how to go about that process. Like this, like maybe in one sentence you should do this part of your answer, and then the rest of your answer should do this. So make sure you hit these different points, and that just makes it, because just talking about anything isn't exactly going to get your point across. You need to be more organized with it, and that I think I've been learning by using the career services. So that is extremely helpful. Resume things, especially with the business school and like Keenan Flagler here, we can talk more about the professional schools, but they'll have specific ways that they want you to make their resume, and I know that the resources here are very aware of that and will communicate that part of it to the students as well. So I find that extremely helpful and niche that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and Claire, you might be able to speak to this a little bit more too. You're a junior, kind of the oldest of our group here, so you might be thinking a little bit more about your post-grad plans, and I don't know if the career services has come into your play at all, but is there any people on campus or centers that has kind of been beneficial in thinking about what you might want to do after? I know that's a scary topic, but
Well, I know that a lot of STEM majors will be taking general courses like chemistry or physics, and they have specific resources in the Learning Center. For chemistry, Gen Chem is called Chem Possible, and for physics it's called Vectorious, but they basically host review sessions and problem-solving sessions that you can attend. But also, if you can't attend, they basically just have you enrolled in a Canvas course. So post-sessions, they'll post the worksheets and the answers. So even if you can't go, you can still do the worksheets and get the help.
That's awesome. I'd don't think I'm going to be tuning into this.
I don't blame you.
I'm not a STEM person, I have to say. I've always dreamed about it, and UNC has a great program for it here too,
Yeah.
so it's something I'd love to take advantage of, but I'll leave that to you.
There's also, I know a lot of people at UNC are looking into careers in healthcare or medicine. We do have a health professions advising office, so if you're specifically looking for advice related to your future career in healthcare or some adjacent field, it might be helpful to also go there instead of just general advising.
Good to know.
And I think, Molly, you could probably speak to this more, but doesn't the business school have something similar? I know that King Flagler, I'm assuming they definitely do have advisors specific to the school.
Yeah, absolutely. They have advisors for students who are looking to enter into the business school, people that they can kind of consult with, what are the steps I need to take, and we'll dive more into the classes and the prerequisites of different programs like that later. But I think it's also important they have different career advisors who know more about business, and this can be applied to any of our pre-professional schools as well as the College of Arts and Sciences. All of the different programs are very fully equipped, so I think that's a great resource to have in general. But before this episode ends, I think we should turn our attention a little bit more towards our technological resources.
Yeah.
The fact that we have $40 of printing every semester is something a lot of people don't know. I've told this to my friends all semester since I'm almost out of printing dollars. Might need to be using theirs, but I think that's something really important. And then on that note, also the fact that we're going to have the tech center, which I think is housed in the bottom of the Union.
Yes, the bottom floor, they have like their service desk, and I walked past it many times, never been to it, but I walked past it and I know a lot of students see it.
It's across from Bojangles.
Right.
Yeah, I've used it actually a couple times, because unfortunately the first week my computer broke. That was very stressful, but they really are helpful. Even if, I will say, if you don't have a laptop that was sanctioned, like that you got from the school, they can't do a whole lot other than give you advice. But the advice that they gave me was very helpful. They fixed my computer. I went to them about my iPad when that broke too. They helped me with that. So they really are there to help you, and I think that that's a phenomenal resource. So.
Yeah, and I mean they also, on top of the student stores, there's places you can go if you don't have technology that you want to get. That's an option. And then on the bottom of the student stores, you can check out textbooks. So those are some good resources to know about. But I think that kind of closes us out more or less for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to learn more about the different centers in terms of technology and learning that we have on campus. And we're excited to see you back for episode 3.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Common Pod's Launch with Academic Thriving. Be sure to follow our social media found in the description below. And don't forget to check out our site at go.unc.edu/pods for more Common Pod's Launch content. Until next time!